Viajado por completo hasta aquí, hasta Nueva York. Majestades, Altezas, ¿qué tal? Buenas noches.
Bueno, nervios, pero también con confianza porque esta selección pues vuelve a enamorar como lo hicieron otros.
¿Cómo está yendo el Mundial? De cómo está jugando nuestra selección. Los que saben ya lo han dicho todo. Solo queda ganar y como el...
There's a moment when a king stops sounding like a head of state and starts sounding like an exhausted, proud father of a nation. That moment happened on July 20, 2026, when Felipe VI looked at a room full of world champions and told them, "You are tired, but what a wonderful kind of tiredness." Behind him stood Queen Letizia, and his two daughters, Leonor and Sophia, both wearing the white national team jersey instead of royal formal wear, because on this day, they weren't attending as royals first. They were attending as fans. This is the story of the day Spain's royal family welcomed home the newly crowned World Cup champions, and if you watch closely, you'll notice details in this reception that most coverage completely missed. To understand why this reception mattered so much, you have to go back one night earlier, to MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, where Spain faced Argentina in the final of the 2026 FIFA World Cup. This wasn't just any final. It was the first World Cup ever hosted across 3 countries at once, the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and it delivered one of the most grueling championship matches in the tournament's history, a contest that stretched through 125 minutes before Ferran Torres finally settled it for Spain. In the VIP box that night sat King Felipe, Queen Letizia, Leonor, and Sophia, marking the first time in history that the 4 of them attended a men's World Cup final together as a family. When the final whistle blew, the family didn't stay seated in the royal box. They went down to the pitch, embracing players, posing with the trophy, and celebrating alongside a squad that had just delivered Spain's second-ever World Cup title. That context is essential, because it means the Zarzuela Palace reception the following Monday wasn't a routine diplomatic courtesy. It was the second half of a story the royal family had been living through in real time, 24 hours earlier, in a stadium 3,000 miles from home. On July 20th, the team's plane touched down in Madrid, and the newly crowned champions were brought directly to the Palace of La Zarzuela for their first official engagement since the win. This is where the details start to matter. Princess Leonor and Infanta Sofia chose to wear Spain's white national team jersey for the occasion, a deliberate departure from the tailored royal wardrobe you'd typically expect at a palace reception. Queen Letizia wore red. It's a small choice, but it's a telling one. It signals that this reception was designed to feel less like an institutional obligation and more like a family welcoming home people they'd genuinely been rooting for. During the ceremony, the king, the queen, and their daughters were each presented with a red Spain national team jersey, embroidered with 2 stars, one for each of Spain's now 2 FIFA World Cup titles. It's a detail worth sitting with, because those 2 stars represent 16 years of history. The first star came from South Africa in 2010, a tournament King Felipe and Queen Letizia witnessed in person, but Leonor and Sophia, still very young children at the time, did not attend. The second star, the one earned in New Jersey, is the first one either of Felipe's daughters has witnessed with their own eyes, in the stadium, as it happened. For a family whose public role is so often about continuity and tradition, that shift, from a title experienced only through their parents' memory to one experienced firsthand, carries more weight than it might first appear. Now here's something almost nobody has connected yet, and it has to do with what King Felipe actually said to the players inside that reception, because his words weren't just polite congratulations. They were carefully chosen in a way that tells you something about how this monarchy positions itself in moments of national celebration. I'll break down exactly what he said and why the phrasing matters in just a few minutes. But first, if you're the kind of person who wants the details behind the headline rather than just the headline itself, subscribing helps this channel keep digging up exactly this kind of context, and it takes about 2 seconds before you keep watching. Speaking to the players during the reception, Felipe described their achievement as an epic victory and called the squad a legendary and historic team. He praised the run to the title as the culmination of a true odyssey, encouraging the players to savor the celebrations after what had clearly been a grueling tournament. Publicly, the royal household released a statement calling the win a triumph that will forever be part of the history of Spanish sport, a phrase that positions the achievement not as a sports headline that will fade in a week, but as a permanent addition to the national record, the same register typically reserved for moments of genuine historical significance. That framing is worth noticing, because it's consistent with how European monarchies have long used sporting triumphs to reinforce a sense of shared national identity. A World Cup win doesn't belong to any single political party, region, or ideology inside Spain. It belongs to everyone who wore the jersey that day, which makes it one of the few moments where a monarch can speak about national pride without wading into anything remotely divisive. Felipe's words were warm specifically because they could be. This was, in the truest sense, uncomplicated good news for the country. What makes this reception particularly interesting to watch closely is how it blended formal state ceremony with something much more casual and human. Photographs from inside the palace show Leonor and Sofia standing shoulder to shoulder with players, smiling, clearly enjoying themselves rather than performing polite royal detachment. This is consistent with a pattern we've tracked all summer on this channel, where Leonor and Sofia have appeared together at an unusually high volume of joint engagements, from surprising their sister at her first solo speech in Zaragoza, to touring the ancient ruins of Empúries together, to now standing side by side in matching white jerseys welcoming home the biggest sports story of the year. If you've watched our previous breakdowns, you already know this isn't a coincidence. It's part of a deliberate pattern of visible sisterly closeness that's defined this entire summer for the Spanish royal family. And there's a detail from later that same day, something that happened after the sisters left the palace, that connects this reception to a much bigger public celebration most people only saw fragments of on social media. It involves a number that sounds almost impossible until you understand the scale of what Madrid was preparing for. I'll get to exactly what happened next in a few minutes, but first, let's talk about what happened immediately after the royal reception ended, because the team's day was only just beginning. Following the reception at Zarzuela, Captain Rodri and his teammates left the palace to pay a courtesy visit to Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, a customary step that places the achievement in front of Spain's political leadership as well as its head of state, before the day moved into its most anticipated phase, an open-top bus parade through central Madrid. This is a tradition dating back generations for World Cup winning nations, where the trophy travels through the streets so ordinary fans, not just dignitaries, get their moment with the team that delivered it, and the scale of what awaited them in the streets was genuinely staggering. Up to nearly 2 million fans were expected to gather at Madrid's Cibeles Square, the traditional gathering point for Spanish football celebrations, where La Roja would present the trophy directly to the public. For context, that's a crowd larger than the entire population of many European capital cities, gathered in a single square, for a single moment. It's the kind of scale that turns a sports victory into something closer to a shared national experience, one that briefly puts nearly every other headline in the country on pause. It's worth stepping back here and asking why this particular reception, more than almost any other royal engagement this year, generated the kind of warm, largely uncomplicated public reaction it did. Part of the answer is straightforward. Sports triumphs are emotionally uncomplicated in a way that political and institutional royal duties rarely are. But part of the answer is also about timing and continuity. This reception came at the end of an extraordinary summer for the Spanish royal family, one that included Leonor completing years of military training, Sofia delivering her first public speech, both sisters touring historic sites together, and now, all four members of the family standing together celebrating a genuine, universally embraced national win. Taken together, these moments build something monarchies depend on more than almost anything else, a sense of consistent, visible presence in the major moments that define a nation's shared memory. Spain's second World Cup title will be remembered for generations. And embedded permanently in that memory now is the image of a king calling the team legendary, a queen in red applauding beside him, and two young princesses in white jerseys, not standing apart from the celebration, but standing directly inside it. If you've enjoyed this breakdown of what was actually happening behind the ceremony most people only saw for 30 seconds on the news, subscribing helps this channel keep bringing you the fuller picture. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it means you won't miss the next moment worth understanding properly. So the next time you scroll past a headline about a royal photo opportunity and assume you already know the whole story, remember this one. Behind the white jerseys and the embroidered stars was a family that had spent a summer building toward exactly this kind of moment, together, visibly, and without a script that required them to be there at all. Spain now carries 2 stars on its crest, one earned before Leonor and Sofia were old enough to understand what they were watching, and one they witnessed with their own eyes, from a stadium 3,000 miles from home. That's not just a sports story. That's a generational marker, written into the history of a monarchy that understands exactly which moments are worth showing up for. If you want to keep tracking where this family goes next, you're already in the right place. Transparency note: this script distinguishes verified facts, the July 19 World Cup final result and family attendance, the July 20 Zarzuela Palace reception, the confirmed jersey and wardrobe details, King Felipe's quoted remarks, the royal household's public statement, the visit to Prime Minister Sanchez, and the Cibeles Square celebration, from editorial interpretation regarding institutional symbolism and family dynamics, which reflects analysis rather than any official statement from the Casa Real.